Thanks everyone for joining us today at the Check with Joseki Tech. I'm Adam Steadley, and today we have Dana Carr joining us from Optimove. Dana, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am Dana Carr. I am Optimove's Director of Email Marketing. I've been with Optimove for just about 6 years now, and I come with 25 years of email marketing and deliverability experience.
And
And
we've worked together with
yeah,
a joint Optimove client. And just for those that aren't aware, you want to give the two-sentence intro on what Optimove is?
Yeah, so Optimove is a global CDP. We ingest customer data and help our customers find a very efficient and optimized way to target and segment their customer data and provide a very personalized way and relevant way to send marketing messages in a multi-channel fashion using streams, journeys, recurring campaigns so that you are targeting your users at the right place at the right time using the best content possible, whether it be email, in-app, SMS, or more, so that you're more likely to see better engagement, better conversions, etc. And you're retaining customers as well as bringing back users that were once highly engaged.
So Dana and I have, this is our second meeting of the day. We
Mhm.
actually had our monthly deliverability meeting with our client, and that client's sending tens of millions of emails every week. And one of the things that Dana does for them and for her other customers is she watches how their email deliverability is going. How are we doing for blocks? How are we doing for bounces? How are we doing for a reputation score? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again now, like in working with Optimove, to me, Dana as individually is a big part of the value proposition, because one of the things you need to do as a big marketer is you need to make sure your reputation score is good. And if it goes bad, you need someone that's watching it and then can, get on the phone to the different postmasters and improve things. And she's done that for this client for years. And, knock on wood, we got really good deliverability from it. So we're a big fan of hers from that perspective. So today's conversation, though, we're going to start talking about iOS. So we all remember the iOS 15 change and how that had a bunch of changes to us. And we'll talk a little bit about that for historical context. But we have iOS 18 changes coming up as well, and they have some chance to be pretty well just as dramatic for us. So Dana, what were some of the changes we had back in iOS 15? How did that change our
Yeah.
world?
So I think the biggest change marketers saw with iOS 15 was the fact that it essentially made the open rates that we had been seeing a little less credible. It brought up the concept of human opens versus machine based opens. And while many ESPs no longer are able to kind of credibly stand by open rates or open rates for users that are opening messages in Apple's native mail app. And I feel like I have to explain that because for some clients, it's still a confusing topic and it's nothing to be embarrassed about either. When I say Apple's native mail app, what I mean by that is it's not exclusive to users who have an iCloud or a Mac or a me.com address. It simply means if you are using an iPhone and you are opening your messages using that mail icon on your iPhone and you're importing your Outlook emails and your Gmail emails and your Yahoo emails instead of their native mail apps on your phone, those are the opens we're speaking about. That's the point of engagement. And so they're no longer sharing how you're engaging with the mail app. So what Apple did, and essentially it was very unique and kind of forward thinking at the time, was they were trying to protect the privacy of their users. And we've seen since then other ISPs, other mailbox platforms, kind of take the lead from Apple since, but because they weren't sending the accurate information, what we saw were some very inflated numbers for email engagement and open rates. So for a lot of our clients, what we started to see were significantly higher open rates starting around mid-September of 2020.
And we all
So
went from some numbers that were like 10, 12, 15% to 40,
40%.
45%. Like things just tripled.
And so while for maybe some leadership meetings, it was an amazing thing, the reality was it wasn't accurate. And so even today, there's a lot of discussion in the email industry that maybe the open rate is dead and it shouldn't be considered a main KPI when looking at engagement. It should be combined with other metrics to determine how engaged your subscribers really are. The reality is many of the ISPs still consider it part of an engagement chain of KPIs that they use to determine how credible of a sender you are, and they use that to determine your reputation score. So I like to tell clients, don't rest completely on your open rate. Look at it more as part of a trend. So don't compare year over year performance, compare kind of like monthly trends in your open rates and focus more on the trend versus the individual data point.
Yeah. And with that change, I know one of the things that we changed was we stopped using the open as an indicator of are our customers engaged with the email? And we're now only relying on the click. So that sort of leaf or that acorn falling in 2021, it wound up having big thuds a year later and 2 years later, because as we slowly stopped sending to these customers, right? We say if you haven't been engaged in a year, we send less frequently to help our reputation. So a year after we stopped looking at the opens, we lost millions of customers. And then when we hit the 2 year mark, we lost millions of customers again. And when you look at our chart of how many customers we have, it's got these very clear sawtooth drops. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is from years ago. So I know that I at least had some interesting conversations where I would tell someone that had been at the company for a year and a half, oh, yeah, this is because of something in 2021. And we just had another echo that was something that was, the 1 year after that last drop, we're now seeing some other effects. So those kind of things stick with us for a long time. So iOS 18, and this is rolled out now, and they announced a lot of these email features, but they're not actually going to give us the email features on our phones until, do we know when?
We don't really know when. And part of that is because with iOS 18, there's been a lot of exciting things that are being rolled out, except we haven't seen, I think, any of the exciting features yet because they're all dependent on Apple's exclusive AI based functionality called, well, they're like smart features. And they're referring to it as their AI led Apple Intelligence tool. And so all of these native mail app features that are coming with iOS 18 are really dependent on this AI functionality that they're releasing. But unfortunately, with the September release of iOS 18, we did not see the release of the AI functionality. So we have to wait for the AI functionality to be released for the native mail app. So we saw 18.0 released, and many of the native mail app updates are coming in 18.1 and 18.2, most in 18.2. But the good news is that while it was the security updates and the security features and even things like hide my email was a big concern. It allowed users to essentially subscribe to email lists, but not use their actual email address, which affected things like bounces, soft bounces, hard bounces. We don't see any of those kinds of updates with 18. We're seeing really exciting kind of functionality, user experience, and some really neat things that allows marketers to kind of put into practice more relevancy as well as some best practices that we should have already been doing, but now's the time to definitely do them when it comes to email builds.
Now, so of these features, I know one of them is that they're going to start doing something more like Gmail's tabs, where you
Yes,
get your primary and your promotions and your updates and your
correct.
transactions. So what are we doing today in our approach to emails already that we understand about how to deal with Gmail that you think might be applicable toward the iOS update?
So there's four key things to know about what's coming with the native mail app changes in 18 point coming forward.
Yeah.
Number one, what you're describing is called categorization. It's what they're referring to because technically Apple Mail doesn't have a tabs function. So just like everything in Apple, we're going to see them as bubbles more so at the top of our inbox in the mail app on our phones. And they're actually saying that categorization will be one of the last updates to the native mail app for us to see, more like in 18.2. And they're going to be very basic. It'll be like an inbox, which will be more like your primary tab, something that's more like a commerce or like a shopping based tab. And then, something more like a transactional or a prioritize more based on, relevancy and urgency and so on and so forth. So more to come with that. But I believe that we're going to see those things categorized much like Gmail does, except with the added benefit of that AI kind of summarization of the content of the message, as well as the basic algorithms that we know today. Who's sending the message, the content of the message itself. Is it text based? Is it image based? But the big three are going to be priorities, summaries, and smart reply. Priorities is a little bit like categorization, but more so on a campaign by campaign basis. This is going to help you, the recipient, to prioritize what Apple believes is the most important thing for you to see. This is, in my opinion, not so much going to affect the marketer the way we might think it would have. So it's not going to, I think at first, when we first heard about this, or at least when I first heard about this, I immediately thought much in the way that Google and now Yahoo offers annotations that, it's going to somehow use AI and other kind of spiderable items in your email text to see if there's urgency or some sort of an expiration date. That's what it's going to use. But essentially what it's going to look for is urgency using its Apple Intelligence, but also is there some sort of time sensitivity in the message? It's going to focus more so on like flights and other kind of ticket-based transportation messages. Are they meeting invites? So you can assume that if you have, for example, Outlook being sent to your native mail app for Apple, anything that's a meeting invite is going to be prioritized. So regardless of when the message was received or when the message was sent, these prioritized emails are going to be up at the very top of your inbox so that when you open your native mail app, you'll see them first and foremost and front and center. So it's not prioritizing by saying this sender is most important. Like if you've prioritized or made your mother the VIP, person in your email list, it's more so this message itself, this campaign is prioritized because there's something within it that is important for you to see right now.
So
Like
you feel like the order confirmations will bubble up, or more my reminder about my open table reservation?
Exactly. I feel like it's going to be an open table reservation. It could be a message about a shipping confirmation, letting you know that an order is set to be delivered tomorrow so that you're on the lookout. So maybe a message from FedEx, or if you have plane tickets and it's time for you to confirm your flight, things like that. Those are going to pop up more so than
Okay.
a promotion that's expiring in a week.
So it sounds to me like from a marketer's perspective, a lot of those more transactional based messages that we have, where we do have some ability to add some marketing content in there, that marketing content is going to be bubbling to the top with the rest of that message. And it kind of makes the use of that message to carry, extra marketing push with it, kind of all the more important.
It is, but I have a feeling that Apple is programming its AI functionality as well as the algorithm it's using for
Mhm.
prioritization to avoid creating a slowdown or an overpopulation of all of these priorities. So it's, meeting invites and travel arrangements and other true priorities based on urgency with the combination of marketing messages that are urgent because of a fear of missing out. So I
So
don't think.
you don't
Mhm.
think the order comps will sneak in if I try to say, send out a coupon expiring this week? Do you think that's
I
something we should
don't
start
think those are
trying to
going to be
sneak in there?
prioritized. I think it's going to be true urgency, not based on expiration, but urgency based on
The event
things
date.
that, have like an urgency because you need to see this, not because a brand wants you to see it. And so knowing how Apple works and how they are continually trying to protect their users and are always 10 steps ahead when it comes to privacy and
Yeah,
protection, I think they're really going to try to put those messages in the shopping tab.
yeah.
But it's
So
still yet to be seen.
so the auto reply was something you mentioned. Is that going
Yes,
to
so
be
smart reply. This
smart
is
reply?
really cool. I think this is going to be really exciting, especially as a parent who gets one word answers when she emails her teenager. So smart reply is using the AI technology in a way that I think really shows off how Apple's AI technology is going to be configured. It is going to summarize, and this plays into summaries as another feature. It's going to summarize and review the content of a message. And when you click to reply to that email, it is going to look at every question that was in the email that you replied to and essentially prompt based on those questions with replies that make sense. So if you receive an email, let's say a text based email, and you now click reply, and within the email it was, hey Adam, this is, Bob from, we'll just say, this is Bob from Optimove. Hope you're having a great day. Wanted to check in with you to see that you're having a great experience. Let me know, how have you been enjoying the product? And, just go through, did you know that this year we've launched XYZ? Have you had a chance to use? Now, when you reply, you'll be prompted, Adam, how are you enjoying Optimove? And you'll
Yes,
automatically
no.
through this AI technology, be offered, I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm not really enjoying it that much. I can't stand it. So all you have to do, much like multiple choice, is just choose your answer and it will automatically go into a draft. And so now Apple's AI will put together, based on these prompts, using the questions that were asked in the original message, build you a draft that will create this automatic reply. And you can approve it and then you can send it. This is really cool. So that instead of having to manually type out a full response, you're being triggered to just really respond to the questions that were asked and maybe, some other features from the original email. But it could be a really great way for marketers to consider how they send messages to customers. So instead of always focusing on these very image heavy emails or the way they code emails, sending out a text based email with smart written questions, knowing that most users, regardless of the domain, are opening messages in Apple's native mail app, could now easily reply and provide you with really great feedback. If you think of surveys, this is a great way to collect data on your customers. It could be a really great way to seek out information, surveys, studies. If you want to find out how your customers are enjoying products or services, it might be a really great way to collect that data.
Yeah, that sounds like a real interesting opportunity. I know a lot of, even as we go from the marketing emails to more the sales emails, a lot of the templates we're giving to the sales guys or the general managers, we can write those with some notion of how's it going to look like when it shows up in the Apple response so they can quickly reply with getting us, what product
Definitely.
categories they're interested in or what, best ways to reach them. A lot of those problems we always have in reaching out to our customers.
That brings up a
Cool.
good point, though, when you're thinking about how you're creating the emails, and you brought up summaries. So, summaries are, again, dependent on this AI tool that Apple's coming out with soon. Don't exactly know when. Summaries will work in two ways, either through a thread. So if there's been a lot of back and forth and personal emails, instead of having to start at the bottom and work your way up, it will summarize the thread, making it easier for you to reply. Or if it's a single email, it will summarize all of the content and essentially replace what you see in the preview screen. So instead of seeing the preview header and the subject line, you'll see, a preview of, here's the summary of this message. But for promotional messages that we know are usually very image based, it is going to require alt text behind each image. A lot of marketers fail to include alt text for every image they include in an email. So earlier I mentioned, there's a lot of things we recommend as a best practice. Not everyone kind of focuses on that. Now we really need to. And so making sure every image you have in your email has alt text with it is going to be so important, because without it, I'm really curious to see what appears for the summary of a message.
Yeah, it sounds like especially we look at when we make better, images, getting the
Mhm.
text right there in the image about, what is the offer, what is the price drop, and it
Right.
doesn't really appear in the copy anywhere. There, I think it's going to be kind of do or die on that alt text. It
Definitely.
also feels like the way we've been, focusing on getting a pre-header as well as our subject line, because we know that's what hits the customer. Now this pre-built summary is going to be, a big part of the game to see where it's going to wind up. Yeah, that'll be really interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, and the summary can hurt us too, because right now I know for myself, I tell a lot of our clients, consider the subject line and your preview text working together. They can either tell a story or they can work together to essentially tease your user into opening your message. With a summary, you're kind of revealing more of the story, and you give your customer the ability to say, nope, not interested. Nope, it doesn't pertain to me. So there is a better likelihood that we'll see a drop in open rates because
That's
of the summary.
interesting.
So it's something to consider, and it's also something to consider as you are crafting your alt
Yeah.
text for images.
Yeah. I wonder if we see a drop in the open rates from that, if we
Mhm.
see a improvement in our click to open rate. Because if
True.
they have more of an idea, if we've teased them to open it, but we don't really have anything good to say, we're not going to get good responses. But if they have a better view in it, then when they're opening, presumably it is more interesting to them.
Right.
So that'll go. And to me, that's also why I think click is obviously a lot stronger of a thing to watch than the open, right? We want to get people from the email to our website. That's, you know, keep pushing the conversation forward. So, you know, it'll come down to hopefully if you've got good messages, you're going to get more clicks. And if you have better messages, this should help. But yeah, it's going to be important to definitely focus on how it's being summarized. That will
Definitely.
be, yeah. I wonder if our friends over at Litmus are going to start to have various sort of Apple preview things so
Oh
we can
yeah, and
check
their
that when
their
we're proofing
previews.
our
That's
copy.
an interesting thought. One thing that they are including that it's not being highlighted everywhere. So if you start looking up like what's coming with the updates in iOS 18 to the native mail app, this isn't like a big call out, but I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's a benefit to email marketers is now in the Apple native mail app, they will be highlighting unread messages. And I think it's important because to date, that hasn't really been something they've done. But if you get a lot of messages in your inbox, especially right now where they don't really have an organized inbox unless you happen to do that manually on your own by setting up individual folders and you structure it on your own. There's no easy way to see at a glance which messages you've opened or read and which ones you've never even touched. So being able to see at a glance visually, because these are going to be kind of grayed and you'll see a blue dot next to the ones you still have not opened, will make it easier to identify messages you still have to engage with or you just haven't engaged with yet. So while the addition of a summary on messages could hurt the open rate, being able to easily identify those that you haven't opened yet could actually boost the open rate. So it, it's one of these situations where it's like, let's see what happens, because while in one situation we might expect to see a downtrend, in the other, it could actually help us. So I feel like while we all thought Apple was trying to hurt the email marketer with iOS 15, this time I feel like they're putting out some things to show that they're very marketer friendly, and I'm excited to see them in action.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting as we see these things roll out. And hopefully once we start to see some results from it, it'll give us another opportunity to talk and we can look back and
Definitely.
see, how we did with our predictions.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for your time today, Dana, and we
Yes,
will
thank you.
talk with you soon. Thanks.